Kate Bihm.
Good evening, y'all. I'm Kate Bihm, obviously a candidate for the 9th District Court. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I moved to Montgomery County 11 years ago to work at the District Attorney's Office. Under Mike McDougal's administration, I was hired by Mike Griffin and Mike Tippin to work there. I was there for 3 years before leaving to open my own practice, and I have been in private solo practice since then. The primary focus of my practice during that time period has been criminal defense and family and juvenile law. At any given time, about 2% of my practice is family. But I've been actively involved in family courts, working in our 4D court on a court-appointed basis, and also using the family code. I do a lot of ad litem work as well, which means I'm court-appointed to determine what's in the best interest of the child. I'm running for the 9th District Court to bring the conservative principles of personal responsibility, accountability, and a smaller, more limited government to this bench. I believe that fair and impartial courts are one of the cornerstones of the government built by our founding fathers, and I am uniquely qualified to sit on the 9th District bench between the candidates that are in the race. The 9th District Court is a court of general jurisdiction. It is currently specialized to hear only felony criminal cases. And I am a skilled attorney. The primary focus of my practice for the last 11 years has been criminal law. I've represented clients at all levels of the criminal justice system, from JP court all the way up to murder, aggravated sexual assault, and the like. So I'm certainly qualified to sit on those types of cases. But as a court of general jurisdiction, it's possible that in the future it could hear family cases, could hear civil, could hear juvenile. The juvenile judge goes on a rotating basis, and I'm the only candidate in this race who has experience in all 4 areas of the law. Our judges in Montgomery County do kind of operate as a team as well. And so as judges, we step in for one another, or could potentially step in for one another when a court needs help, when a court has a vacancy one week, and there might be a family law case that desperately needs to be heard. And I know that police officers have family law issues just like normal lay folk do, okay? And I think that if you were sitting in front of a judge having them determine an emergency child custody issue, a protective order that involved your children or one of your family members, you would hope that the judge that was hearing it had some experience in that field. And as the only candidate in this race who has criminal, civil, juvenile, and family experience, I'm also the only candidate that's been on both sides, prosecution and defense. And I point that out to say that if you or someone that you love, a family member, a cousin, a friend, a colleague, were charged with the crime, look deep into your hearts, into your minds, and think who you would want to be the judge that sits on the bench in that case. I think one of the things that I offer to law enforcement specifically is access. One of the complaints that I've heard from law enforcement officers and from other people that are in the halls of criminal justice is that we don't have enough judges that are willing to do the work, who are going to be up late taking warrants, who are going to be in their office doing the warrants, and who are going to make themselves available to law enforcement. The other thing that I bring to the table is my level of recognition in the community and by my peers for experience and expertise in the field of criminal law. In 2013 and 2014, Houstonia Magazine named me to their list of top lawyers in the Houston area. I received that award in 2014 from H Texas Magazine as well. 2014, I was Montgomery County Criminal Defense Lawyers Association's Appellate Attorney of the Year. I've also been selected by the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association to travel around the state of Texas. They pay for me to fly or drive around the state of Texas to teach other lawyers, first to be better lawyers, and also to teach other lawyers the law. And that should be important to you as officers, because you'll know that when you come to me, I know the answer and I know the right answer. And what does that do? It means that we don't have cases that get reversed. And reversals are expensive for the taxpayer. They're horrible for the victim because they have to relive it. And they cause a lot of difficulty in strife in departments, and we want to avoid that. I'm here today asking for your endorsement, but I'm also here today asking for your vote. Because I know that the law enforcement vote, you don't vote as a block. You are all individuals with your own minds. But I know that you are an integral part of our court system. And I hope that I can gain your faith the same way that I've gained the faith of my peers and the faith of my community. Any questions? I'm sure you've got a few.
First, can you explain why there are so many pretrial detainees?
Gosh, that's a multi-layered question. First and foremost, I think one of the reasons why there are so many pretrial detainees in the Montgomery County Jail, it has as much to do with the way that the courts are working as it does to do with how arrests are being made and what they're being arrested for. The second part, I have absolutely no control over that. All I can do is to say that my focus will be on keeping the community safe. And I think it's important to recognize that keeping the community safe has as much to do with making sure that non-violent offenders are not on our streets, as much as it has to do with also making sure that people who are not necessarily non-violent, but who also lack the will or the ability to control their own actions, from being out on our streets selling drugs and that type of thing. But I believe very strongly that the right to a fair trial is the most important right that both the state has and that criminal defendants have. And believe it or not, there is only one right that a criminal defendant cannot waive, and it's his right to a fair trial. He can waive his right to a speedy trial, but not his right to a fair trial. And so if I have to choose between getting people to court faster or making sure that each and every person who comes in front of me is treated fairly and impartially and gets the due process that they're afforded under the U.S. and Texas constitutions, I'm going to choose due process first. But that being said, I want to make sure that our criminal defendants have access to our courts as well, that they don't just have a docket once a month. If they get reset, why are we reset? I had a case the other day that was reset 3 months out. Now, sometimes that's done by design and it's done by request of the defense. Sometimes it's done because there's just not a docket with any room on it. I believe in daily dockets. And I think part of daily dockets is good for law enforcement. If I'm on a bench, that's where you know where to come to find me, on that bench. And so I think that's a good thing. I think a large part of what is causing a clog in our jail is that we have people who are there for what would ultimately be relatively minor crimes, but because of their past criminal history, they have an extraordinary range of punishment, and we're setting bonds based upon the range of punishment and not necessarily based upon the crime itself. I'll just give you an example from my own practice. I had a guy that had .02002, 2/100ths of a gram of methamphetamine, who because of a lengthy criminal history at a time in the past that he had not had any offenses for quite some time considering, was being held in an extraordinary bond that there was no way that he could make. Do I really think it's a good use of county resources for him to sit in jail for 90 days so that he could ultimately get a plea bargain for 60 days in the county jail? No. I don't think that that's a good use of our resources. And so I think that our judges need to rethink collectively and also work with the district attorney's office to change how we set our bonds so that we do so at the outset more thoughtfully as opposed to really rushing into that situation, and then you've got a month before somebody gets set on a docket when everybody realizes that it should probably be a lower bond because that person's not a danger to the community and maybe better start working. Next question.
Just food for thought. When you talk about the minuscule amount of meth and the dates in his history, do you realize how much havoc a meth can cause law enforcement?
Absolutely. 100% I do. 100% I do. But I also realize the havoc that the overcrowding at our jail is causing our county. And so I know that when I release somebody on conditions of bond, that I'm going to have them drug tested immediately upon their release. And I can have them drug tested every week thereafter. I can have them do hair tests at their expense.
I think what he's saying also is when you say to them, they would be better working, they're not working. And they will be stealing the very next amount. And that's what we deal with. We catch them the very next amount.
Over and over.
I understand that.
We catch them with that little minuscule.
I understand that.
And then we can have peace for a little bit, and then when he's back out, it's like he's just freaking out. And it's not just that one. I understand that. Your question was about what's causing overcrowding at the jail.
Yeah.
And my answer is one that it's like, well, if we have to choose somewhere, would I rather have somebody locked up in jail who's charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child than a minuscule amount of a controlled substance? Yes. Yes, I would. And I approach judges all the time as a defense lawyer about bond reductions. And as a judge, I would rather be able to make the decision not based upon, oh gosh, where the jail is so crowded, but oh gosh, there's a realistic chance that this person may harm a child. And I don't want to have to make a decision based upon whether the jail is crowded. I want to make a decision about what's best for the safety of our community and, most importantly, the most vulnerable members of our community. So I understand completely. Listen, I've got repeat offenders and people that I just want to look at and say, get your life together. You're making this terrible for all of us. But at the same time, I think what we count on our judges to do is to make those really tough judgment calls. And if I have to make a tough judgment call, I don't want it to be about jail overcrowding. I want it to be about safety for our community.
Thank you.
What is the number one thing you would change if you were elected to improve?
In the 9th District Court specifically,
Yes.
first and foremost, I think that the most important things that our judges do at the trial level is to call balls and strikes. They don't insert themselves into the game. And I think that one of the challenges that we have had in that court in particular is that some of the strife that has been caused has taken away from the work that the court can do. And it has probably damaged some of the trust that our community has in the court, that law enforcement has in the court. And if you ask anybody who knows me, anybody who's worked with me, and anyone who asks judges, lawyers, police officers who've known me well, I'm a rule follower. And I'm really passionate about making sure that the law is followed. Not the law as I would like to see it, but the letter of the law. And that's what I'm committed to. And I would like to change the perception that people have of that court as being one that is working against the people instead of one that is working for the people. Because that's what I'm here to do, is to serve Montgomery County. I love this county. When I left the DA's office, I could have gone home to Bryan College Station. I could have gone down to Houston, where those people apparently make a ton of money because they all drive Mercedes up to Montgomery County and park outside. And I think, man, I must be in the wrong business. But from my perspective, I love this county. And I want to make sure that the judge that sits on the bench in Montgomery County represents the fair-minded, compassionate, and conservative people that I know that we all are.
Thank you.
You actually answered.
I'll bore you with it anyway. What is the plan for prosecution in managing Dr. Lowe and Larry, the current city judge? And that's pretty much you already.
And I do want to address an issue there that I think is important. Because I have not been a prosecutor in any cases that are assigned to that court, have not supervised the prosecution of any cases that are assigned to that court, once I sit on that bench, that court is going to start blowing and going. There's going to be no recusals. The cases that I have that been in that court will be transferred out and handed off to other attorneys, and that court is going to start cranking. I can promise you that. It's ground to a standstill right now. That's not fair to the victims, that's not fair to the defendants, it's not fair to law enforcement. And so I know that you guys are worried about case clearance rate, just like prosecutors are and just like courts are. And so my goal is to get that court up and running as quickly as possible and not, there not being a fight over whether, so-and-so can sit on a case because they've touched it or supervised it or that type of thing. We're going to hit the ground running.
I'll pass on my question you've answered multiple times. It basically just was in regards to your availability for search warrants on a 24-hour basis, but you covered that. Thank you.
On the safety control too, because you answered within answer there, you answered mine as well. And so thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much for having me.
Thank you.
If, by the way, if you have any questions, or you can always look at my website, which is bimforjudge.com, and you can also email me at bimforjudge@gmail.com. Thank you.